Why is everyone and their mom calling themselves nerds these days? I'm Nerdicus.
I'm Nerdicus.
I'm Nerdicus.
I am Nerdicus.
I am Nerdicus.
Just me, Nerdicus.
I'm Nerdicus with a PhD in terribleness. Hey guys, Steveocubed here. I just wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind for a while now. I've noticed lately in culture today, that a lot of people have been calling themselves nerds. So I'm not talking about nerds who call themselves nerds, because nerds are nerds, right? A nerd is a nerd is a nerd. What I've been talking about is not a nerd. So like the jocks, the cute girl at school, the guy who's into like sports. They call themselves nerds because they're like, hey, I saw that Avengers movie and now I'm a nerd. I really like that guy Hawkman, and I also like the other guy, what's his name? The Steel Man. Those guys are awesome. Did you know there's a comic book based on the Avengers movie? I gotta go read it. Yeah. So those kinds of things pissed me off. Used to piss me off. Sort of do now, but not as much. So it used to piss me off because I'd be like, dude, you are not a comic book fan. Dude, you're not a nerd. Just because you saw one movie, like one movie franchise, just because you saw Batman Begins and Dark Knight Rises doesn't make you a nerd. That makes you like every other person in the entire world. So like it's almost like mainstream culture is appropriating what a nerd is. Back in my day, we had to go, climb up a mountain front and back and walk all over to get to Nerdville. I'm glad I'm not a comedian. That was a terrible impression. I don't even know what I was trying to do an impression of. Anyway, the whole point is, back when I was younger, being a nerd wasn't all sugar plums and fairies, like, it was like you were on the fringes of society, and I kind of liked being a nerd, and I think most nerds back in the day liked being a nerd, but part of the reason why it was kind of cool being a nerd was you were doing your own thing. People made fun of you for it, but at the end of the day, you were you, and they were them. And now it's like, I feel like when you're a nerd nowadays, it's like you're just joining the entire world and society by saying you're a nerd. So it's almost like it has no meaning anymore. The whole point is to be on the fringe of society, to be like your own person, but if you can't be your own person by calling yourself a nerd, it's like the fact that like the nerd used to be on the fringe, but now calling yourself a nerd is bringing you to the mainstream. So that means you're mainstream. I feel like society's taken the word nerd and made it like the hipster of geekiness. They've taken everything geeky and made it mainstream. And I feel like, a lot of people who are just generally nerdy are frustrated by that, because they're like, hey, this is my identity, and you're taking my identity and putting it all vanilla, blah, all over it. It's like dumping a big batch of vanilla on it. Bam! Vanilla. And I get that, because part of me is like, yeah, that's who I am, that's who I identify as, and now I identify as what? But when I really think about it, it's really not all doom and gloom. It's actually pretty, I think, awesome to be a nerd these days in this world. And here's why. So yeah, I quote-unquote lose my identity, that I can't, when I call myself a nerd, people are just like, I'm a nerd too, But are you complaining that the hot girl in school is saying, I'm a nerd too? I'm not. Are you complaining that that people are making the Avengers movies, that they're making the Batman movies, that they're coming out with a Justice League movie, a Man of Steel team up with Batman? I'm not. I mean, all those things that I wanted in my childhood, that I only dreamed of, that I never thought would happen, are happening because people all over the world call themselves nerds? Are we really complaining about that? I'm not. So if you're complaining about the fact that your nerdiness has been appropriated, I feel you, but I feel like the benefits that came with nerdiness being like a culture thing instead of a counterculture thing far outweigh our quote-unquote identity theft. Another thing though, the word nerd, the fact that like it's been accepted into our culture, and the fact that geek has been accepted into our culture as well. I'm kind of using the word nerd, geek, and dork interchangeably. I know that they're not interchangeable in a lot of circumstances, but for the sake of this video, I'm kind of just lumping those words together. I think the fact that it's been accepted is creating more of an accepting culture in our world too, believe it or not. I know it's like a minor thing, but I believe that accepting nerds into our world and as part of our culture and part of the everyday pervasiveness actually helps in a small way for us to be more accepting of people in general, no matter how different or how weird or how whatever they are. And that's something I can totally get behind, no matter what. And for people who feel like their identities are being taken away by people who use the word nerd, and now like the real nerds don't feel like they can use the word nerd anymore, I feel you, I get you, but I don't care if people understand how nerdy I am by me saying a nerd. The word nerd isn't who I am. The word nerd isn't who you are. Nerd is almost like just a way for us to identify ourselves, but we're so much more than that, you know? If you feel offended by the fact that other people call themselves nerds who aren't nerds, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. Because yeah, you are a nerd. Or maybe not. I can't see you through the camera, but I'm assuming you're a nerd if you're watching this video, but you're so much more. You're also this, that, and the other thing, you know? Because you're smart enough, you're handsome enough, or pretty enough, and gosh darn it, people like you. No, but really, I know that I'm so much more than just a nerd. That being said, there is a part of me that still finds it kind of annoying, if we're being completely honest. But it's okay to be annoyed. The important thing is to realize, though, the price of our being annoyed is it's so much awesomer to be annoyed. It's an awesomer word. I don't know. It's so much awesomer to be annoyed and have all this cool thing happen with nerd culture than to not be annoyed and have that nerd culture go. So, you know what? Society, keep calling yourselves nerds. Keep doing that. I'll keep being slightly annoyed, and I'll keep loving it. Final note, I actually talked to a few students, I was just curious what they thought, because maybe I'm a little out of touch with society these days, with what the youngsters are up to. So I wanted to see what they considered, or what they thought about when it came to like nerddom and the word nerd. So here are a few of their thoughts. Would you consider yourself a nerd?
I don't consider myself really anything. I don't label myself.
How do you guys feel about the fact that like everyone considers themselves a nerd?
Maybe it's like a step further to like people accepting each other, because like a nerd, if you watch the old movies, some people would see it as a bad thing, but now that everyone wants to be it.
It's kind of annoying in a way, because you're not being who you want to be, you're being who you think is cool and hip and hipster.
Let's say you saw a girl and like she was like hot, but she was wearing glasses, and then she said she was a nerd. Would you think that she was like fake?
Personally, I would have to get to know her, because she could be honest. It doesn't matter what she looks like on the outside. She could be the hottest girl on the planet and still be a complete, total, quote-unquote nerd.
That's so beautiful.
And say don't judge a book by its cover, but we do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't really tell until we know.
But I think the word nerd itself has become like Google. The word Google is just used in a sentence as its own, without a real meaning like it used to have.
No meaning, basically.
No meaning? Okay.
Because we like accept that if you nerd is someone you don't accept, because they're weird and awkward.
I don't think that being a nerd was always looked at as like a negative thing. I think it would depend on the individual themselves. Because when you look back at the movies and stuff, nerds were the ones that actually like they had friends, that they were happy, that they accepted each other, but always strived for more. And it always made the popular kids seem like they were never happy. They didn't have any real friends. So, yeah. So
let me know what you think about everyone calling themselves nerds these days. Is it something that bothers you? Is it something that doesn't? Are there reasons that the word should be bothering you or not? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And when you do comment, I'd also love to hear if you personally consider yourself a nerd or not, and why. Okay? Or I think the kids say these days, a nerd or nah. Someone told me that that's like the slang these days. Blah, 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 or nah. If you like what you've heard so far, for Steveocubed. Please subscribe below or nah. Thanks. Aw yeah. I'm totally weird. Yeah.